Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya 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 Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari.
Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari.
Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari.
Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari.
Jaya Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana.
Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana.
Yamuna Tira Vanajari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Tira Vanajari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Shashri, for the wonderful kirtan. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept our humble obeisances, Prabhuji, on behalf of everybody who have joined this group and are about to join. Prabhuji, we are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 1, Chapter 9, which is the passing away of Bhishma Dev. And the text for today is text 44. Prabhuji, should we carry on as usual? We read the text, word to word, translation and purport, and then do the Mangalacharan and then hand over to you. Hare Krishna. Shashwin, are you able to read text 44 with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya to start off with?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshva Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shlokir Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Hare Krishna. Sampadyamanamagnyaya Bhishmam Brahmani Niskale Sarve babuvuste tusnim vayam siva dinatyatye. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Would anybody like to do the word to word and translation?
Hare Krishna Mataji, I can do word to word.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Sampadyamanam,
Sampatyamanam,
having merged into
having merged into
Agnaya.
Ajnana.
After knowing this,
After knowing this,
Bhishmam,
Bhishma,
about Sri Bhishma Deva,
about Sri Bhishma Deva,
Brahmani,
Brahmani,
into the Supreme Absolute,
into the Supreme Absolute,
Nishkale,
Nishkale,
unlimited,
unlimited,
Sarve,
Sarve,
all present,
all present,
Babhuva Te,
Babu, Te,
all of them became
all of them became
Tushnim,
Tusnim,
silent,
silent,
Vayamsi Iva,
Vayamsi Iva,
like birds,
like birds,
Dina Atyaye,
Dinatya,
at the end of the day.
at the end of the day.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anybody would like to read the translation and purport? Okay, I can read the translation and purport. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Okay.
Knowing that Bhishma Dev has merged into unlimited eternity of the Supreme Absolute, all present there became silent like birds at the end of the day. Purport. To enter into or to become merged into the unlimited eternity of the Supreme Absolute means to enter the original home of living being. The living beings are all component part and parcels of the absolute personality of Godhead, and therefore they are eternally related with Him as the servitor and the served. The Lord is served by all His parts and parcels as the complete machine is served by its parts and parcels. Any part of the machine removed from the whole is no longer important. Similarly, any part and parcel of the Absolute detached from the service of the Lord is useless. The living beings who are in the material world are all disintegrated parts and parcels of the Supreme Whole, and they are no longer as important as the original parts and parcels. They are, however, more integrated living beings who are eternally liberated. The material energy of the Lord, called Durga Shakti, or the superintendent of the prison house, takes charge of the disintegrated parts and parcels, and thus they undergo a conditioned life under the laws of the material nature. When the living being becomes conscious of this fact, he tries to go back home, back to Godhead, and thus the spiritual urge of the living being begins. This spiritual urge is called Brahma Jignasa, or inquiry about Brahman. Principally, this Brahman Jignasa is successful by knowledge, renunciation, and devotional service to the Lord. Jnana, or knowledge, means knowledge of everything of Brahman, the Supreme. Renunciation means detachment of material affection and devotional service. It's a revival of practice of the original position of the living being. The successful living beings who are eligible to enter into the realm of the Absolute are called the Jnanis, the Yogis, and the Bhaktas. The Jnanis and the Yogis enter into the impersonal rays of the Supreme, but the Bhaktas enter into the Supreme spiritual planet known as Vaikunthas. In these spiritual planets, the Supreme Lord as Narayana predominates, and the healthy, unconditional living being live there by rendering loving service to the Lord in the capacity of a servant, friend, parents, and fiancé. Here, the unconditioned living being enjoys life in full freedom with the Lord, whereas the impersonalist jnanis and yogis enter into the impersonal glowing effulgence of the Vaikuntha planets. The Vaikuntha planets are all self-illuminating, like the sun and the rays of Vaikuntha planets called the Brahma Jyoti. The Brahma Jyoti is spread unlimitedly, and the material world is but a covered portion of an insignificant part of the same Brahma Jyoti. This covering is temporary, and therefore it is a sort of illusion. Bhishma Dev, as a pure devotee of the Lord, entered the spiritual realm in one of the Vaikuntha planets, where the Lord, in his eternal form of Parthasarthi, predominates over the unconditional living beings who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. The love and affection which binds the Lord and the devotee are exhibited in the case of Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev never forgot the Lord as the Parthasarthi, and the Lord was present personally before Bhishma Dev while he was passing to the transcendental world. That is the highest perfection of life. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Shubha Mataji, are you able to do the Manglacharan?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Yes, I can do. Thank you.
Om Agnan.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. My humble obeisances to Prabhuji and all the devotees present. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guruho Shri Yutapadakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Hey Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept our humble obeisances on behalf of everybody who have joined the group, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 44. We hand over to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled bodies. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasa, Shri Gaura. Sometimes people will go to the doctor for a checkup, and they find out, the doctor lets them know that they have some serious disease, which is not good news. But it is such a fortunate thing to know, even though it's not pleasant news. We are very indebted to the doctor, to the physician. We are very fortunate to have the opportunity to be informed of our situation, so that we can hopefully take some course of treatment and become cured. The doctors, we should be so grateful to the doctor. And the spiritual master is considered, the guru is considered the spiritual doctor who is in this material world, who is functioning within this material world to instrumentally cure the disease of their disciple. And the word guru is sometimes translated as heavy with knowledge. And the spiritual master destroys the disciple's suffering by knowledge. So here in the purport, within this one purport, such a complete summary, everything is here in this purport describing our situation, how we are spiritual parts and parcels of God, of Krishna, how we are spiritual beings that were eternal, how we are in a prison right now. We are in conditioned life. We are living in a restricted kind of life, just like a prisoner is restricted. So we are restricted by this material body. So Srila Prabhupada writes that when the living being becomes conscious of his spiritual situation, he tries to go back home, back to Godhead. And thus the spiritual urge of the living being begins. So this has different things can be said about this. One of the main things is that according to how conscious a person is, that they are a spiritual being, that they are eternal, that there is a spiritual world, then they will be interested. And to the degree that they're not conscious, they won't be interested. Why should they? They'll think spiritual practices are crazy. So this is, there's nothing surprising about that. And also for us who are on the path of devotional life, to the extent that we may become forgetful of who we are, we will also have doubts and wonder why we're doing what we're doing, and not be so interested because we have forgotten our situation. Imagine someone who is informed that they have lymphatic cancer and they forget. They won't be interested to follow the rigorous treatment because they've forgotten their situation. And it's the same with us. So therefore, remaining conscious is so important. That's one thing that I'm reminded here by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, that so much depends upon our awareness. Srila Prabhupada gave 7 principles, 7 guiding principles for the formation of ISKCON, for this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And I believe it's the second one. The second purpose is to bring the members of the society nearer together and closer to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada would regularly point out that even businessmen, they have associations and they get together and they discuss different techniques and different ways to become successful. Association can be so helpful. And on the path of spiritual life, association is absolutely essential. So we are so extremely fortunate. Peter Prabhupada said that if you could really appreciate your good fortune, you would dance like a peacock. When we take the time to reflect how we have been in this situation of suffering for countless births, so many births and deaths, so many different types of suffering, so many different families. It could be that we had giraffe family. We had a giraffe wife, a giraffe husband. Could be. Other human births, other families. We have a long history. And now we are having the opportunity, and most likely we had the opportunity in our previous life to go home back to Godhead, our original place. So this is very exciting, actually, a very wonderful opportunity. What could make anyone happier? People who are in jail, if they are informed, oh, you have been a good prisoner, we're going to let you free next month, they become ecstatic. They become so happy. And this is how something we should feel. We are soon going to be let loose to our original eternal life. No more death, no more birth, no more coming back to earth, no more headaches, and, teeth pains and earaches and foot pains and stomach pains, husband, wife, and children pains, job, so many different sufferings every day of our life. We will be free of all of that. And that's just half of it. Even better is where we're going, back to a place of extreme love, where everyone is a nice person, where we are full in love of Krishna, and Krishna is in love with us, and everyone around us loves us. So what a wonderful, wonderful place. No dogs that attack. There are dogs in the spiritual world, but they don't bite. And there's no poisonous plants. You don't have to worry about hyenas or lions coming out of nowhere to attack you. So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And how indebted we are, of course, to Krishna. We learn that the Lord, Krishna, he incarnates into this material world. He descends. The meaning of avatar is one who descends. Just like in a cave, very often there's an opening to a cave and you have to go down. Not all caves are horizontal. Some of them are straight down or close to straight down. And you have to go down in a rope, and then you get to the bottom and it's horizontal and you can walk. So Krishna and the spiritual master, they come down into the cave of this material world, the darkness of ignorance, where people don't even know who they truly are, who are suffering and don't know what the ultimate solution is. Everyone is guessing how to solve suffering. And Krishna brings light. Om Jnana Timirandasya. It's like we say this prayer every time before class. Om Jnana Timirandasya Yanangana Shalakya Chakshur. Chakshur means light. Chakshur Anmritam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. That I offer my respectful obeisances unto my beloved spiritual master, who has opened my darkened eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. So this is it's nice poetry, and it sounds it's very sweet, but it's absolutely true. It's not just some nice sounding poetry. In the narration of Ajamil, in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Brahmin who fell down into degraded life, who let himself get caught up. Finally, he was uplifted again. And it's described that he went to Hardwar, to an ashram, and he was very, very careful never to forget where he had come from. And Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that we should all never forget the difference between a life with Krishna consciousness and a life without it. We should try very hard never to lose track of the value of our practices, of what we're doing. Now, this can be hard, of course. That's easier said than done, especially in our beginning years of Krishna consciousness. Life can be very challenging, and it's hard to think of anything sometimes. It's true. It's not easy always. But somehow or other, never to lose track, at least in the back of our mind, no matter what the life challenges are, family, relationship challenges, or the weather, or our health, our financial situation, all these things, of course, we think about, and we have to think about them. We're forced to think about them. They can be very distracting. So we ask, well, then how can I remain appreciative? Sometimes it's hard just to get through the day. It's just hard to get through the morning. All I'm thinking is if somehow I can get through this day and go home and go to sleep. That's my main goal of life. And that's true. It can be so challenging life. If I can just get through this afternoon, that's my main goal of the day. Now let's be realistic. So somehow or other, though, to remain confident, which is why we have this regular Sangha, that whatever's going on during the week, at least one day a week, actually it should be every day, but at least one day a week, I put myself in the light. I give myself the opportunity to become revived in my appreciation by this Harikatha, by the association, and specifically association meaning discussion. Krishna is present where he is discussed. That is ISKCON. ISKCON is not, the temple is not just a building that has a sign on it, temple. Our home is a temple to the extent that there is Harikatha. So this Harikatha is so very, very important. It is our light. Even when our life becomes somewhat dark or darker, and it does sometimes, we are very fortunate to have many different ways to stay in the light. And that's all we have to do. No matter what we're thinking, no matter how advanced we think we are, or we actually are, or how not advanced we are, no matter how peaceful and happy our mind is, no matter how crazy and corrupt we may think our mind is, we never give up. We never stop keeping near the light, because ultimately it will save us. If we go away from the light, then we will just drown. However much difficult it may seem, if we go away from the light of Krishna, it will get really bad. So this is very important. And as we practice Krishna consciousness, we'll become more even-minded. We'll become less bothered by what happens, and we'll become. It'll be easier to remain appreciative, even if materially things are very difficult. So it is a matter of practice, like anything else. You practice anything, you practice cooking, you practice exercises, singing, playing a musical instrument, whatever it is. You get better and better as time goes on. So you just have to keep at it. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada writes about our destination. The successful living beings who are eligible to enter into the realm of the absolute are called the Gyanis, Yogis, and Bhaktas. The Gyanis and Yogis enter into the impersonal rays of the Supreme, but the Bhaktas enter into the spiritual planets known as the Vaikuntras. In these spiritual planets, the Supreme Lord is Narayan predominate, and the healthy, unconditioned living beings live there by rendering loving service to the Lord in the capacity of servant, friend, parent, and fiancé. So we talk about staying in the light, and here is the light. It is the association of our ISKCON founder, Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, and his Bhaktivedanta purport, and those who repeat these purports, and those who give lectures on these purports. That is staying in the light. And of course, bhajan and our japa, so that we can be reminded of this very, very wonderful, what's coming our way. There are so many persons in this world, unfortunately, who have no idea of it. However much difficulty we may think we're having, difficult to chant my round, difficulty to control my desires, difficult this and difficult that, and it can be difficult. At least we know. You think about the thing, that Ajamil, never forgetting the difference between a life with Krishna consciousness, a life with Bhaktivedanta purport, a life without Bhaktivedanta purport, a life with temples, a life without temples. In other words, not just stopping with poetry, or not just stopping with some general comment of staying near the light, but taking time. It's so important for us to take time, whether it's once a week or once a day, to make it real. That what does this mean for me? We sing the prayers that the samsara dava nadalita loka pranaya karunya ganaganaka, that the spiritual master is delivering the disciples from the ocean of the blazing fire of birth and death. So how does that apply to me? Samsara, the spiritual masters are delivering the disciples from the ocean, from the blazing fire of material life, engaging them in the service of Krishna. So is that true for me? We have those prayers we sing at Guru Puja, that my only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from my spiritual master's lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desire. What are those lotus feet, really? What does that really mean for me? The spiritual, what is that? That the spiritual master has opened my darkened eyes. Were my eyes darkened? What does that really mean? When I was, I don't do it hardly at all anymore, except perhaps in my own mind. But long ago, when I first started studying Srila Prabhupada's translations and purport, and he actually suggests this in the first canto in the beginning. Srila Prabhupada writes that the process of explaining Krishna consciousness is more powerful than just hearing it, because by explaining it, we understand it better, and we memorize it by explaining it. So I heard that, I thought that, okay, I'll do it. So whenever I would read something, I would write. And somewhere, Srila Prabhupada advises us that write your realization. So I would read a purport, and then I would write. Today I read this, and Brahman means this, and the Brahmajyoti means that. And I would picture that I was writing it to different people. Krishna gave me this idea that imagine explaining it to a college student, imagine explaining it to a child, to my father, to my uncle, to the person across the street. And I found that really, really helped me in many ways by helping me to understand it better. Because just like this, the jnanis and yogis enter into the impersonal rays of the Supreme. What does that really mean? What are the impersonal rays? If you had to explain that to someone, how would you do it? And it doesn't have to be a very long thing. It could be just 2 or 3 sentences. Today I read this, and this is what Srila Prabhupada was saying, or this is what my mentor was saying. It also helps us to learn how to express it to others too. Because if you sit there and imagine, oh, I'm writing this to the neighbor across the street, you'll be training yourself. Krishna will be training you to explain it and explain it to ourselves. So I'm making the point that although we may think to ourselves, yes, I understand this, how deep can we go? And how deep should we go? Probably we should go deeper than we think. It can't hurt. All these words, the Brahmajyoti, the realm of the absolute. What is the realm of the absolute? How would you explain that to a coworker? So this is a very valuable practice that Srila Prabhupada himself recommends. You go as deep as possible. This will help us to become more secure too on the process of bhakti yoga. So I'll discuss that a little bit. So or actually, why should I do it? Of course I should do it. So what does it mean, the impersonal rays of the Supreme? Who would like to offer their thoughts about that? What does it mean? Imagine I'm your uncle that doesn't know hardly anything about Krishna consciousness. How would you explain that? What does this mean, impersonal rays of the Supreme?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, no right or wrong, just how would you put it?
I read in Srimad Bhagavatam that they've done an analogy with the sun and sun rays. So a lot of people don't believe that Krishna is a personal person. Some people think that it's just he doesn't have any shape, and they just believe in light. So they reach as far as Brahma Jyoti. So the rays of the sun are compared with Brahma Jyoti. That's how I understand it.
So the impersonal rays is just the impersonal feature of the absolute. Anyone else want to elaborate on that at all, or offer some other thoughts? How would you explain that? Let's practice.
I think Prabhupada has given an example of train coming from at a distance, and then you see only the light. You don't know what is coming and what a train looks like, and what it just looking from far, you just see only the light. So that is impersonal Brahman. So you just see the light of the train. But when it comes nearer, you see there are different compartments and there are different, it's running this fast and it's coming to approaching the station. And then when you get into the train, actually you see, oh, there are people sitting inside. And so these are the different features of, how we can understand from Prabhupada that how he explained the different features of the Lord, impersonal and personal.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, and so one thing I believe we can take note of is that according to the perspective of the person, how far they are from the train station, the way they describe it is true, isn't it? If they describe that up ahead, I see a building and I see some light, isn't that true? It's not untrue. They're not
Yeah.
an illusion. And then someone else who's closer may say, I see a building and I see some trains and I think I see people. That is completely correct. And then as you say, as we actually come very close, then we see people, what color clothes and what kind of bags they're carrying, and so many trash that's on the ground, so many details. And that's also correct. It's not that the other people are completely wrong, right? But it's just they're at a different distance. And so this is nice when we're speaking to someone who has a different perspective. Yes, your understanding of God is correct from the perspective that you're looking, or from who you learned from. Whoever you learned from, they had a certain distance, and there are different distances. In this way, we don't have to attack or we don't have to criticize someone else's perspective. What do you think?
True, Prabhu, true. All religions say one thing, that there is supreme and that there is supreme absolute truth. But according to time, place, and circumstances, they're not revealed of many features of the Lord, because I think they were not in a position to understand.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
it is reported that both Jesus and Buddha, they told their followers, there is much more that I could share, but you don't have the ability to understand it. Which is not a personal criticism, it's just a fact. If a high school teacher tries to teach algebra to young students, they just can't understand it. That's very good. So then, what is Brahman? Who would like to? How would you explain if someone asked you, well, what's Brahman? I opened one of these books and I saw this word Brahman. Brahman. What is that? Someone else? Anyone else? Anyone? What is Brahman?
Prabhuji, I was just wondering, is Brahman known as universe in English?
Brahman is the entire universe. That's what you're saying?
Yes, yeah. I'm. Is that what it means?
Okay. Any other thoughts what Brahman is?
Is it the impersonal feature of the Lord?
The impersonal feature of the Lord. What are the qualities of Brahman? What is it? Is it shiny? What is it? What are some of the qualities of Brahman?
Actually, it is spiritual, but there is no activity there. There is no birth, death, old age, disease, but there is also no activity there.
And what are some synonyms? What are some other words that we could use for Brahman? If you wanted to help someone understand Brahman, what other words might you use? Can you think of any?
I can't think. Yeah.
It's all right.
Spirit.
Spirit. right? Because you touched on that it's spirit, not material. So Brahman is spirit, it's conscious, whereas the matter is unconscious and temporary. So you mentioned something like that. So Brahman is Sat Chit. It is Sat, eternal, and it is full of consciousness. So that's spirit. And then Vedanti tat 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 vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shapite. That's a very common verse which is quoted by Srila Prabhupada. That's just what you were saying. That brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shapite. That the supreme absolute truth, Vedanti tat 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 vidas, it is known in three different features. But it is all the different features are Brahmanic. They're all spiritual. Just depends upon perspective. Any questions or other discussion about that, or anything that we've been talking about?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I think Shobha Mataji meant Brahmand, which is the whole universe. Brahmand is the whole universe, but
Sometimes
Brahman
it's, yeah,
is referred to as the whole universe, and Brahman is the spiritual. It is not in the material realm, it is in the spiritual realm.
because in a sense, everything is Brahman. From a higher perspective, everything is Krishna. Everything is spirit. As Srila Prabhupada describes, the Brahma Jyoti is spread unlimitedly, and the material world is a covered portion. Sometimes described just like having clouds over it. You know, when the sun is covered by clouds, it looks a little dark, but the sun is there. So everything is spirit, but it's, does anyone remember hearing what makes a difference between something being material or spiritual? Has anyone heard anything? What makes the difference between that chair you're sitting on being material or spiritual, or that pillow?
There is interaction.
It's interaction.
In spiritual, there is interaction because,
Attract-
yeah.
Attraction.
Yeah.
Okay. Some other thoughts?
In the material world, you are governed by the three modes of material nature. But in the spiritual world, it is transcendental. Even the mode of goodness is not there.
Anyone else? What makes our car material compared to spiritual? So
It's not Sat Chit Anand. It doesn't have the Sat Chit Anand, the features.
yes, you know, from the perspective of what's the functional difference, or what yeah, it's unconscious. The car is unconscious, whereas a spiritual car would be conscious. Right. From another perspective, something is spiritual when it's connected to Krishna. This is described in the fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita and elsewhere, that anything which is used in the service of Krishna for the purpose of pleasing him, for fulfilling his desires, is spiritual. The car, I'm not sure if the car will become conscious, but it will be spiritual in the sense that there's no reaction for using the vehicle, or using the computer, or using the chair, or using the clothes, because it's being used in connection with Krishna. When it's not used for Krishna, then it's being used in darkness. Just like when the driver of some wealthy person, if somehow they forget the car belongs to the owner and begins using it themselves, then it's being used in darkness. And then maybe they'll remember, perhaps they were drunk. So when they become sober, oh, what am I doing? This belongs to so-and-so. So this is just like us. We wake up. What am I doing? This body these people, this house, it belongs to Krishna. I should use it for him. So then it becomes spiritual and doesn't have any reaction. So it doesn't up to as long as it's not sinful, it doesn't matter what we do, what job we have, what clothes we have, but as long as it's in connection to Krishna and the results are being used for Krishna, then there's no material reaction or much less reaction, depending. So this is a very, very important point, so that we can live spiritually without having to stop acting. There's a verse in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that, one who sees action and inaction, and inaction and action is described as being actually wise or learned. That simply to sit in a cave or sit in one's house and not do anything is not inaction, because we're getting material reaction. Every breath we take, or some breaths, are killing tiny organisms, and our inner consciousness, if it's not that we're acting for Krishna, then we're acting for ourselves, and that brings about material bondage. So even though it may seem that someone is inactive, if they're not acting for Krishna, then actually it's materially entanglement. And even if someone is very busy working and they have a business or some job, if they're giving the results to Krishna and they're using all the results in a Krishna conscious way, then it's actually inaction. Or inaction means there's no material bondage. So this is a very subtle point. Srila Prabhupada makes the point that the impersonalists can't enjoy life. They don't eat any nice food. They don't sleep on comfortable beds. They go off into a cave, or they just they become like inactive ghosts. And that's not natural. It's much more practical, and it's actually reality that everything belongs to Krishna. And so I have some nice fruit, and it does taste good, even if it's temporarily. And I thank Krishna, and I offer it to Krishna. And I have a job, and I use that money so I can continue my Krishna conscious life and help others as I can. And in this way, we can become very integrated and utilizing everything that we have in our life in a natural way. In Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada said, is not about no, no, no. It's about yes, yes, yes. Eat, but eat these foods. Act, but act in this way. See, but see these things that are connected to Krishna. So like this. So all these things we learn from Bhagavad Gita, and we are encouraged to go through it again and again. And when we have questions, to ask. Any other comments or discussion?
Yes, Prabhuji. The person who goes off into, say, for example, a cave and meditates for years and whatever, would that person be thinking that we in the material world are less, in a way, less spiritual than him, because he gets great satisfaction and he's happy not eating food, or he's happy with his choice of prayers or meditation? And so, do you think that?
Yes, it's very, very common. Lord Chaitanya, when he was having his Sankirtan movement in Navadvip and Jagannath Puri, he was criticized very much by just what you're speaking about. There were certain groups of spiritualists who had a different idea of what spiritual reality, spiritual perfection was. And here was Lord Chaitanya, and they were feasting and swimming in the water, playing and dancing and singing. And so he was criticized. What is this? What are you doing? You should just, what is all this activity? What is all of this crying? Lord Chaitanya would cry. So yes, that is it's just ignorance. It's just a lack of understanding. And of course, those people, especially the ones who are genuinely following sadhana, they're certainly progressed and they're definitely on the transcendental path. They're at a certain point.
Yeah.
Is
Thank
that all right?
you. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So in the example over here, the Vaikuntha planets are the Brahman, and the rays of the Vaikuntha, the rays of the sun is the Brahma Jyoti.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Vaikuntha is Brahman.
Everything is Brahman. But Vaikuntha is the sun, or like the sun globe, and the Brahma Jyoti is like the rays of the sun.
But Brahman is the sun and the sun rays, both. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Are there any other comments or questions?
I just wanted to say thank you, Kirtika Mataji. I was getting confused with Brahmand and Brahman. So thank you for clarifying.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I just had a question that people who are meditating on the impersonal feature of the Lord, and then they are doing so much austerity. I mean, probably more than the people who are in Bhakti Marg or in devotional service, but they're not getting the same goal as the bhaktas. And then they're probably is it because of their lack of knowledge, or is it because of surrender to the Lord? Like how do we explain that? Like, because they're more austere than us. They do more austerity than us, but still they're getting a lesser goal.
Well, I mean, it's I believe that for us who are in the material world, austerity is a big thing. I mean, it's not something that we see that often. And when we see someone who's practicing significant austerities, it's an amazing thing. Or when we see someone who's able to make a little gold dust in their palm, I mean, it's just magical. It's very special, but it's not nearly as special as love. That's the thing. So like us in the material world, many of us we think that having power, because having power and position and influence is a very significant thing, because we don't have it, or we all have it to different degrees. And so when we see someone who has a lot of power, a lot of influence, some politician or celebrity, someone, it's special. And because it's something that's valued for us in this world, where we feel so powerless sometimes and things are obviously not in our control, to have power is very valuable for us. But for Krishna, so therefore, sometimes people will assume that God is someone who's on a power trip. Oh, he must be really happy. He has so much power, and he utilizes that power, and he's like a dictator or something. But that's not actually true, because we're looking at things from our value system. But higher than the power and the money and the mystic power and the austerity is love of Krishna. It's actually more valuable, and it is the ultimate goal. It is only by love that one can understand God completely. Mother Yashoda has Krishna going to pick up her slippers because of these yogis are trying, and God bless them. In many ways they're more advanced than I am. They can do things I can't. They're trying to have realization of Krishna. But Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda and Srimati Radharani and the Gopis, Krishna does things for them. Krishna's driving the chariot of Arjuna out of love. So that's pretty amazing, how powerful that is. And they don't understand that as yet. Krishna explains why in the Bhagavad Gita, that it's only by many, many pious activities, tremendous pious activities, that and the association of a pure devotee, that one advances in bhakti yoga. So it is very likely that some of us, or many of us, we've already done that. We've done those up there, really. And now we've done to some extent. And now we are at the point of the top, the final rung of the ladder of yoga. And there's another thing, which is envy. It's something which even we have to deal with to one degree or the other. The pure devotees, the acharyas explained that it is only at the point of prema, which is a long way off for most of us, that the last little tiny speck of envy is gone. So we have our work to do to keep our heart as free of envy as possible. So people are resentful. They resent that there's a person like Krishna. They just don't, just like your neighbor. You resent the fact that this person has such a good job and so much money. Everything seems to happen by good luck. And I'm struggling so much, and you hate the person. Or you have some negative feelings for them. So we do for Krishna to one degree or the other. And so these yogis, some of them are actually black-hearted in the sense that they're really envious that there's and therefore, because they don't like personality, they focus on impersonality. Some of them are very envious. When we hear the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, some of them did some very awful things. Because any kind of progress, someone's a successful weightlifter or an actor or actress, we develop a kind of pride. Oh, I'm so successful, I'm so good at this. And we don't want there to be someone else who's better than us. And it's also, you can imagine that, suppose for a long time you had a particular perspective, and all of a sudden, supposedly there's another perspective which makes yours incorrect, or you don't want to stop. It's very hard sometimes for people to just surrender. Oh, I was going down the wrong path for so long. Oh, sometimes people will out of pride or out of fear. Oh, this is the only way. They become bigots, even spiritual bigots. This is the only path. This is the only way. This is the best. Anyone who's not doing this is an idiot, because they don't want to back down from their position. Now you may say, well, that sounds like how we talk sometimes. But in our case, it's true. It's just true. It's a fact. Or at least the philosophy that the goal is topmost goal. Any other discussion about that? I know it's getting late.
Yeah, we've exhausted our time. So if there are no more burning questions, we can end the session. And I can request Arya Govind Prabhu, since his video is on, if you can end the session, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna Prabhu. We really enjoyed the class. There's much knowledge to be gained on the personal and impersonal features of the Lord, and then like what is better for us, and then what path we are doing, and how we are able to progress on a day-to-day basis. Thank you so much, Prabhu. I request all the assembled devotees to unmute and chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra once in glorification of His grace, the insurance Prabhu.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna, Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare
Hare
Ram,
Hare
Ram
Ram,
Ram,
Ram Ram, Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa
Sanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Padhi Sharan Prabhu ki jai.
Thank you very much for having me. And put up with me.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, for a wonderful. Thank you.
We all
Thank
have an
you,
opportunity
Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
to remember Krishna together. My best wishes to everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.